Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our program. My name is Helen Liu, and I'm the Programming and Partnerships Manager at Carey Library. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Carey Library Foundation. Their support enables us to bring programs like today's event to you. I'd also like to thank the public libraries in Ashland, Bedford, Dedham, Groton, Needham, Newton, Sherburne, Somerville, Tewksbury, Wayland, the Morse Institute Library in Natick, and the Peabody Institute Library in Danvers for partnering with us on this program. This program is being recorded and will be posted to the library's YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A or chat, and Grace will answer them at the end of the program. Today, we are going to learn practical tips on how to stir fry with success with Grace Young. She'll speak about demystifying the traditional iron wok for use in contemporary kitchens. And to help introduce you all to the wok, I'm going to share Grace's wok therapist video, which won a James Beard Award, to get us into the mood of wok cooking. So I hope you enjoy it. Will be a stir fry demo by Grace Young. After the cooking demo, we're going to watch a quick 5-minute video of an interview with Grace and CBS, which will give you some context for the next part of our program, where Grace will talk about her work saving America's Chinatowns. We've saved some time for questions at the end. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Grace Young is an award-winning cookbook author, culinary historian, and filmmaker. She is a 2023 Forbes 50 over 50 honoree and is the recipient of the Julia Child Award, the James Beard Foundation's Humanitarian of the Year Award, and is a USA Today Women of the Year honoree for her work to save America's Chinatowns. Grace has been called the Stir Fry Guru by the New York Times and the Wok Queen by the Washington Post. Welcome, Grace. We are so excited to meet you and welcome you today. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much, Helen. So I'm really looking forward to giving you this stir fry lesson. I think stir frying is one of the simplest ways to cook, and it's super healthy, but there are so many bad recipes out there. And so I want to go over some basics with you today. I want to start with the wok. There are a lot of stir fry recipes that say you can stir fry with the skillet, or they'll say you can stir fry with a wok, but it could be non-stick, anodized aluminum, stainless steel. The wok that I recommend is a 14-inch flat bottom carbon steel wok. The traditional wok has a round bottom, but for American stoves, you really want the flat bottom because our stoves aren't as powerful as your typical residential stove that you'll find in China. And so the flat bottom means that it sits closer to the heat. And this is really important. You can't use a round bottom wok for sure if you're using induction, ceramic glass top, or an electric coil stove. So this wok, let me just show to you, has just like a 5-inch or so flat bottom, and it's made of carbon steel. I've been using this wok for quite a while. I just want to show you very quickly. When you buy the wok, it looks like can you see that? It almost looks like stainless steel, but it is carbon steel. And this is a fairly newly seasoned wok, so there's barely any color to it. And it takes a long time to reach this black stage of this wok that I've been using for at least 10 or 15 years. So this is just how a wok looks when it's in its early stages. I want to just show you a traditional round bottom wok. This is cast iron, and the Chinese cast iron is very different than American cast iron. It's much thinner, and so it heats up faster, but it's also more fragile. If I bang this wok against a kitchen counter, you could shatter the wok. And I just wanted to show you a flat bottom cast iron wok. This is the Chinese flat bottom cast iron wok. That's available at the Wok Shop in San Francisco. This is very important if you're using induction or ceramic glass top. Sometimes with the carbon steel, when you heat it up, the bottom of the wok warps ever so slightly. so that it's not sitting completely flat against the surface. And in such a case, so 50% of the time the carbon steel works on induction or ceramic glass top, but 50% of the time it doesn't. And you can't really predict what's going to happen with your wok and your stove. So in that case, I recommend the Chinese flat bottom cast iron wok, because then there's no possibility of any warping, and the contact is really excellent. So the reason why I like carbon steel or cast iron is the more you cook with it, the more the pan actually creates its own natural nonstick surface. The last pan that I would ever use in the world is American nonstick woks or skillets. First of all, these pans are not intended for high heat. If you're using the less expensive nonstick cookware, when you set it on high heat, it actually releases a toxic carcinogenic fume. So my favorite is this flat bottom, and I've given you some different resources along with the recipe today. And my favorite place to buy this wok is KK Discount in New York City. They have an online website where you can order it. The website is really ugly, so you have to get past that. But they do sell this wok. I think it's either $30 or $35, and there's shipping. But this wok will last you a lifetime. And KK Discount is one of the older businesses in New York City's Chinatown. It's been around for over 30 years. It's a multi-generational business. Oh my gosh. I am teaching this class from New York City, so the doorbell's ringing for whatever reason, but my husband will get it. All right, so today the recipe that I'm going to be teaching you is a vegetarian fried rice. And the reason why I chose this recipe is because it gives you a basic understanding for a stir fry. And even though it's vegetarian, if you're a meat eating person, you can add meat at the very end. And so this is what I call a one wok meal. It is extremely practical. I almost always have some cooked rice in my refrigerator. Sometimes when I'm working and I lose track of time, I'll look up and suddenly realize it's 6:30 and I've got to put dinner together. If I have cold cooked rice in the refrigerator, I can always put together a fabulous meal. So let's go over the ingredients.
I'm going to show you how to make the aromatic vegetarian rice right now. And the first thing that you have to understand is that you have to prep all your ingredients ahead of time. There's nothing complicated about this prep, so that's why I've done it all ahead of time, so that we don't have to waste time with me showing you right now. So the first ingredient that we're going to go through is, and I just want you to understand, everything has been placed in the order that I'm going to use it for the stir fry, so that there's no last minute questions as to which ingredient goes next. So the first ingredient is the oil. This is 2 tablespoons of a high smoking point oil. I'm using grapeseed here. You could use peanut, safflower, canola. The one thing that you don't want to use is a low smoking point oil like extra virgin olive oil or Asian sesame oil, because those have low smoking points. So with high heat, they're going to start to smoke wildly, which means you've actually broken down the chemical structure of the oil. So always use a high smoking point oil. This is 1/3 cup of chopped shallots. If you don't have shallots, you could use scallions, you could use onion, you could use even a red onion would be fantastic. This is a tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm going to combine it with the shallots because they go in at the same time, and so that saves having to add a second ingredient. The next ingredient is 1 cup of diced carrots. This is 1/4 inch dice. And when you're stir frying, remember that All the ingredients should be cut as uniformly as possible, because if you have 1/4-inch dice and 1/2-inch dice carrots, by the time the 1/2-inch dice are cooked through, the 1/4-inch will be overcooked. The next ingredient is the rice. I've already cooked this ahead of time. This is 4 cups of long grain rice. I like to cook it in a saucepan rather than a rice cooker. And after you cook it, the most important thing is that you need to fluff it like this and cook the rice a day ahead of time, or even like in the morning, and refrigerate it. But when you refrigerate it, the rice is going to solidify into a solid block, which means that when you try to stir fry it, it's going to be very difficult. So after you've cooked the rice, fluff it, and then even after you've refrigerated it, fluff it again. The next ingredient is 1 cup of sliced shiitake mushrooms, and these are cut 1/4-inch thick. I've even used the stem of the mushroom, so nothing goes to waste. Let's go over how to choose mushrooms. This is a perfect mushroom. It is white, the gills are nice and tight, there are no blemishes. You're seeing a little bit of dirt here, and you can use a toothbrush to clean the mushroom. Just brush off all the dirt. I always cut off this little piece right here, 1/4 inch, because the dirt is just too hard to remove. And then once you've cleaned it, then snap this stem off, and then cut the caps into thin 1/4-inch thick slices, and then cut the cap right in half lengthwise. This is, I don't have an example of a really bad mushroom, but right here you can start to see that there's just a little bit of blemish coming here, brown spots. There's also dirt on this mushroom, but and the gills start to open up when the mushroom is old. So most of my mushrooms were in really good shape today. This is a 1/2 cup of diced red bell pepper, and then 2 eggs that have been beaten. Over here I have soy sauce, 1 tablespoon, and let's just talk about soy sauce for a second. There are so many different brands right now. One of the most common is Kikkoman, but you should really be looking at the sodium levels of whatever soy sauce you choose. This Kikkoman is 920 milligrams, which is very, very high. This is one of my favorites. It's a Chinese soy sauce that comes from Sichuan, and it's called Zhongba. And this soy sauce, the sodium level is, let me see here, sodium is 1,175. So as you can see, soy sauces can be very, very high in sodium, and you don't need to have it that high. I like the low sodium soy sauces. Kikkoman is the most famous low sodium, but I think that it tastes like chemicals. My favorite is Yamasa. Can you see that? And the sodium here for 1 tablespoon is 520 milligrams. This is an excellent soy sauce. It is naturally fermented. There's no, the flavor is really fantastic. This is another favorite. It comes from Taiwan. It's called Kimlan. It's called lower sodium soy sauce. And this one is, the sodium is 650 milligrams. So compare that with the Zhongba. It's almost half the sodium. And what I really like about this brand is, and as you can see, I always like to write the date of when I bought it, so I don't, but of course I go through my soy sauce pretty fast. But what I really like about this one is there are no preservatives. It's just soybeans, wheat, water, sugar, salt, seasoning agents, and licorice extract. So this is a really fantastic soy sauce. And the last thing is, there's always people that can't take soy sauce because of the wheat. And I've just recently discovered this product. It's called Yongdu. I'm not even sure how you pronounce it. But it's made with soybeans, but no wheat. And there's also vegetable stock in it. The sodium in this is very high. The sodium here is 960 milligrams for 1 tablespoon, but it is the best product that I've tasted that comes close to soy sauce. So the other ingredients that we have here are salt and white pepper, and I'm just going to combine them also right now. And then we have a 1/2 cup of chopped roasted cashews. You can take raw cashews and just put them in your wok without any oil, and on medium low to medium heat you can stir fry them for 2 or 3 minutes, and you'll see them just gradually turn color. Some people roast nuts in the oven, but I always feel like you're constantly checking the oven and the nuts haven't turned color, and then you wait an extra 30 seconds, open the oven, and then they've burnt. So I love dry roasting the nuts in the wok. Also, if you don't have cashews or you don't like cashews, you could use almonds, you could use pine nuts, even walnuts. This is 2 tablespoons of chopped cilantro. After you wash it, I always dry it before you chop it. This is sesame oil. My 2 favorite brands are Kadoya, which I've just run out of the Kadoya. As you can see, the bottle is almost empty. This is a pure sesame oil. When you're buying sesame oil, just check the brands, because sometimes they don't use the word pure, and that means that there's some vegetable oil in there combined with the sesame oil. So Kadoya is a favorite, and this other brand, which is harder to find, is called Kuki, Kuki, and I discovered this last year in Chinatown. And then finally, there's a little chili garlic sauce, 1 to 2 teaspoons, and my favorite brand is the Hoi Fong Foods, which is readily available even in supermarkets. So now we're ready to start stir frying, and so I'm going to heat up my wok. And you always heat your wok on high heat. And then I need to preheat it. So the first thing is, how do you know when your wok is correctly preheated? I do the water drop test. I have a dish of water here, and I'm just going to flick a drop of water in the wok. And when it evaporates within 1 second, it's ready to go. So as it's heating right now, let me go over the spatulas. There are a number of spatulas I want you to see here. Lots of people want to stir fry with wood, but I really don't recommend wood because it's too thick. The edge is too thick, and so it can't get under rice, meat, fish, chicken, fish. What I recommend is, of course, there's the Chinese spatula, the metal spatula, but it's really hard to find good ones. This one I've had for about 20 years, but you can see with the metal edge, it's very, very thin, so it's excellent for getting under rice, chicken, fish, meat. I also like the American, what is called a fish spatula, because it's flexible and it comes under the edge of the food very nicely, and it's a little flexible. And even an old-fashioned pancake spatula is great. Just don't use wood. So I think our wok is about preheated now. And now I'm going to flick the drop of water. Almost there. So every stove is different. If you have a semi-professional stove, it might take 15 seconds or 5 seconds for you to preheat the wok. If you have a New York City apartment stove, it could take you 5 minutes. So this water test is a really great way to check whether or not the wok is correctly preheated. And I think we're almost there. 1 more second. Yep, that's it. So now we're going to swirl in the oil, and always around the edges of the wok. And then I always pick up the wok and make sure the oil is really spread. Then you add your shallots and garlic. And do you hear that sizzle? That tells you that the wok was correctly preheated. If there's no sound, it means that the wok wasn't hot enough. So you just stir fry this for about 5 to 10 seconds until the garlic and shallots are fragrant, and then you add the carrots. And the carrots you're going to stir fry for about 2 to 3 minutes. The reason is when you're stir frying vegetables, you have to think about the fact that vegetables are in different categories: hard, medium hard, and soft leafy. And when you're stir frying a hard vegetable like carrots, they need more time. Medium vegetables like green beans or eggplant need less time. And then the fastest vegetable to stir fry would be spinach, baby bok choy, the leafy vegetables, or even bean sprouts. So we're just going to stir fry this until the shallots begin to brown a little bit. And I just want to mention, when you are washing your vegetables, I like to wash my vegetables in a solution of a teaspoon of baking soda to 2 cups of water, or 2 teaspoons of baking soda to 4 cups of water, and that removes any pesticides on your vegetables. It's a very quick thing to do, and then of course you rinse the baking soda water off the vegetables. Okay. So now I'm going to add the rice. And the mushrooms, the bell pepper, and let me just stir fry this for a second. And as you can see, look, there's absolutely no sticking. So that's the reason why I love carbon steel so much, because the more you cook with it, the more it becomes a natural non-stick surface. Now I'm going to add the rice, and I'm just going to pour it around, not just in one spot. The reason I like to teach this recipe is it's great for vegetarians. But if you're a meat lover, you could also add chopped cooked chicken. I'm adding my soy sauce now, always around the edge, never just in one spot. And here's the salt and white pepper, which I'm sprinkling throughout. Again, never just in one spot. Yeah, so if you're a meat lover, you could add some diced turkey. You could add some cooked shrimp that's been cut into small pieces. Chinese barbecue pork, again, diced. And you would add it just about now, about a minute or 2 before the rice is done. Because it's already cooked, all you're really doing is reheating it. And look, still there's no sticking. I call this my one wok meal. If I'm short for time, I always have some cooked rice in the refrigerator so that I can make this, and use whatever vegetables are in season. In the fall, I love to use bell peppers, which I have here, and the carrots. But in the summertime, cut corn is fantastic. Diced zucchini. So use whatever in season. Empty out your refrigerator of all the little leftovers. And I'm using long grain rice here, but you could use brown rice, also bulgur, couscous, farro, whatever grain you like. Once you understand this, just use your creativity to decide how you want to make your fried rice. And now this is heated through. You still hear the sizzle. I'm turning it off, and now I'm adding the cashews, the cilantro, sesame oil, and finally the chili garlic sauce. If you don't like heat, you can skip the chili garlic sauce. So customize this to make it exactly what you love. If you don't like cilantro, you could just put in parsley. Oh my God, that smells so good. And no skipping. Check this out. All right, that's it.
So one more thing that I just want to discuss with you is when you buy a brand new carbon steel wok, as I said, it's going to look more like this. So it's stainless steel in color, but it is carbon steel. And what you need to do when you get a brand new wok is season it. And that means you need to wash the wok inside and out with this stainless steel scrubber. You need to put liquid detergent in the wok and scrub it on the inside and the outside. And really use elbow grease. You will not see anything come off the wok. But you need to do it several times and rinse it under hot water, because every single brand new carbon steel wok has been coated with machine or factory oil. And they're so sophisticated at doing it these days that you can't see it and you can't even really touch it. In the old days, you could touch the wok and there was this kind of sticky substance on it. But now it's quite sophisticated. But if you don't do it, when you heat the wok on the stove the first time you use it, you're going to get this very, very toxic smell. And it's that factory oil that's being burned right off the wok. So really scrub the wok with the stainless steel scrubber inside and out several times, rinse with hot water, and then place it on the stove and put it on like medium-low heat and allow it to dry for about 1 minute until you no longer see any droplets of water. And then to season the wok, what you want to do is heat the wok on high heat and then add 2 tablespoons of a high smoking point oil like grapeseed, as I said, peanut, canola, safflower, sunflower, and then stir fry 1 bunch of scallions that have been cut into 2-inch pieces and a half a cup of sliced ginger. And you reduce the temperature to medium. Normally when you stir fry on high heat. But when you're seasoning a wok, you want to reduce the temperature to medium and literally pretend this is scallions and ginger. You are stir frying the mixture along the bottom of the wok, and then you're literally smearing it along the edges. And the scallions and ginger clean the metal of the wok. As the metal gets hot, the pores of the metal are opening up. So you're literally bathing the metal in this oil mixture, which actually begins to burn into the wok. It's called polymerization, and it eventually hardens on the wok, and that's what creates the natural nonstick surface. And then, as you saw with my brand new wok, some woks turn a little yellow, some turn a faint blue color, some get this ugly black splotch. You can never predict what's going to happen, but you just have to keep on cooking with it. And each time you're cooking with your new wok, you're literally burning oil into the pan. And when you wash the wok, I recommend just soaking it in hot water and then using a Scotch-Brite sponge. I normally use the yellow side of the sponge. After you've soaked it in water, if there's anything sticking, you can use the green side and just gently rub against the wok wherever it's sticky, and that should come out. You don't want to do it too hard because that will pull the patina off. And it takes time and lots of cooking, but eventually your wok will turn black like this. And the older the wok, the more delicious the food tastes. And that's what the traditional cooks say in Chinese cooking. So now Helen is going to show you a quick video that CBS Morning did with me last year. And then we'll speak about the work that I'm doing for America's Chinatowns.
And I know we have lots of questions in regards to cooking with the wok, and so we'll get to those afterwards.
I just thought I would speak a little bit about the work that I've done in the last 4 years. At the start of the pandemic, I was going to write another Chinese cookbook. I've always been known for my Chinese, my specialty is stir frying and wok cooking. I have never, ever had any experience doing advocacy work. I've never been an activist. And at the start of the pandemic, I was stunned that in January, long before any cases of COVID were in this country, I walked into New York City's Chinatown, where I normally go 2 or 3 times a week, and it was a ghost town. It was empty. Glancing into restaurants, I saw no customers and waiters just standing around. It was, normally I'm jostling with the aunties and the grandmothers for my produce. Every market was empty. I did a post on social media because it was January and I saw a street vendor. It was freezing cold in New York City, a street vendor with no customers. And I did a post that just said, Chinatown is perfectly safe. And if we don't support Chinatown, these businesses will lose them. And Food and Wine magazine, one of the editors saw the post and asked me to write a piece about the importance of protecting Chinatown. I reached out to my local media, and I reached out to my local NPR station, got on talking about what was happening. I got onto the World PRI, All Things Considered had me on. By the time we went into lockdown, I just couldn't believe that Chinatown was like a Hollywood movie set, an empty set with there were no cars, no people on the sidewalks. It was very, very painful and very terrifying. By the time we reopened in the summer of 2020, there was only, in New York City, restaurants could only provide takeout. And we lost some of the old legacy businesses, which were the heart and soul of Manhattan's Chinatown. I'm originally from San Francisco. I was monitoring what was happening in San Francisco. San Francisco was even worse. Oakland's Chinatown, like San Francisco and New York, they're all historic Chinatowns, and they were devastated. In the summer of 2022, I remember Grand Avenue had 50 shuttered storefronts. In my lifetime, I've never seen more than 2. So I just, because I had media contacts, I tried to reach out to the media to raise awareness. I wrote articles. I wrote an article for Eating Well magazine. I did an Instagram takeover for Bon Appetit. I didn't even know what an Instagram takeover was. I did a dumpling crawl for Vogue. I helped Vogue do a piece about women, mother and daughter owned businesses in Chinatown. And I just have to say that I've always been a person that when things, when life is, when the world seems to be like falling apart, I always feel as though that there's nothing that I can do, that other people will take care of it, maybe our leaders or activists. But in this situation, I really stepped up, and there was no plan, there was no strategy. Somewhere in the middle of the pandemic, someone told me that Desmond Tutu once said, "Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good that overwhelm the world." And I think that's the story of what happened to me. I just did little things. And this KK discount store that I've mentioned to you that sells walks, in June of 2020, we went to interview Mr. Lee, the owner. And as CBS, you saw, I did this video series called Coronavirus Chinatown Stories at the start of the pandemic, interviewing business owners in Chinatown and asking them to talk about what they've been going through. And Mr. Lee, in June of 2020, said that he had lost 80% of his restaurant customer business, and he had lost like almost the same amount of his regular foot traffic customers. But he said to me that day, but 2 new customers came in. And so I'm feeling really hopeful. And that made me feel that even if I did a social media post, maybe I could get Mr. Lee 2 new customers. And that's all that he was hoping for to keep going. And watching all these mom and pop businesses, and 94% of the businesses in New York City's Chinatown are mom and pop. In San Francisco, 1,000 family-owned businesses. This country used to be, mom and pop businesses used to be the backbone of this country. And now, because of Amazon and Costco and Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, you know, this is how we think when we need something. You scroll and you click. But when you go to Chinatown and you see what it takes to survive, all of these businesses, the owners, the workers, they're there 7 days a week. They're working 10, 12, 14 hours. Their markup is razor thin. So they only make their money by selling quantity and working longer hours. And none of them threw in the towel. All of them just kept coming in, even though there was hardly any business. And that's when I saw what they were going through, and there was anti-Asian hate crimes. So it was dangerous for them to come into Chinatown. It gave me the feeling that the least I can do is to try and get word out there of what they were, what their struggles were like. And so I've been very lucky. It's strange. I always tell people it's like the Dickens line, it was the best of times and the worst of times. I have seen such horrific things happen in the last 4 years. It's been extremely painful. I was just in Honolulu in January, and their Chinatown closes at 3 or 4 in the afternoon because there's no business. San Francisco's Chinatown still is struggling, closing early in the afternoon. Oakland's Chinatown, there have been all these different crimes. So the elderly are afraid to come out. A lot of young customers are afraid to come out for fear of being hurt. The workers are afraid to come to work for fear of being hurt. Philadelphia's Chinatown is fighting the 76ers who want to build a $1 billion arena adjacent to Chinatown, which will destroy Chinatown. And the mayor and most people in Philadelphia are against the arena. And the mayor just announced a few days ago that she is behind the arena and it's going to happen. Washington, D.C.'s Chinatown. I was there a few months ago. It's been a half a block for decades now. So Washington, D.C.'s Chinatown is a painful reminder of what happens if we don't pay attention and we don't show up in support. I know many of you have access to Boston's Chinatown. I was just there in June of this year, and they are struggling. They are all mom and pop businesses. I was at Ho Yuen Bakery that's been there for decades. And when you walk into the bakery and you just look into the kitchen area, all the people who are working are in their 50s and 60s and 70s. It's really something to think about what these businesses, what the makeup, the grit that it takes for these businesses to continue. So I see that we're almost at 10 to the hour, and I want to leave time for Q&A, but I just want to remind all of you to please visit your local Chinatown. And if you don't have a local Chinatown, but visit your local Japantown, Little Saigon, Koreatown, or visit just the little Asian market or restaurant in your area. In New York City, we just got a P.F. Chang's, our third one. And during the pandemic, in April of 2020, CNN reported that 50% of Chinese independently owned restaurants had ceased their credit card and debit card transactions, which means that they had closed. And meanwhile, P.F. Chang's had gotten all these PPP loans, and they reported record earnings. So I really feared that we would lose all the unique mom and pop restaurants and be left with P.F. Chang's and Panda Express. So I have this campaign with the James Beard Foundation. It's a social media campaign, #SupportChinatowns, plural. And we just ask that when you go to your Chinatown, do a post about a restaurant and what your favorite dishes are to eat there, or something that you love to buy in Chinatown. Mayor Wu of Boston's Chinatown just did a video for me. She didn't talk about any of her favorite businesses because I think it's too politically wrought that she doesn't want to mention any businesses and then offend the businesses that she didn't mention. But yeah, it's very exciting. Senator Mazie Hirono of Honolulu has done several videos for me, Amy Tan, Andrew Zimmern. So please add your voice and remind your family and friends of the importance of supporting America's Chinatowns. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace, for all your work in supporting America's Chinatowns and for sharing your advice on, the little things you can do to get started with advocacy. So we do have quite a few questions. I'm just going to try to get through them. So someone asked, can you use avocado oil?
Absolutely. Avocado oil is a high smoking point oil. It's great.
Great. Skin on the ginger.
When you're seasoning the wok, you do not need to skin the ginger. And also, when you wash the scallions for that seasoning recipe that I mentioned, make sure you dry it, because if they're wet scallions, you're going to create spattering. But when you're normally cooking, I always remove the peel from the ginger.
Thank you. And thoughts on using a rice cooker to make the rice versus a saucepan?
So I'm anti-rice cooker. That's what I was trying to say at the beginning of the session. I see no problem in cooking rice in a regular saucepan. It's much simpler. A rice cooker always has that non-stick surface. I am very anti-non-stick. I think that it's extremely dangerous. Yeah, I often cook my rice actually in a sand pot. I mean, today you saw me, I cooked it in a stainless steel pot, but sand pot I even prefer more. But I feel like we need to get back to basics and natural cookware. And why use that extra energy plugging in a rice cooker? It's just not for me.
Thanks. Um, what are your thoughts on the Kikkoman lower sodium, the 500 milligrams, I guess?
So for years, that was the gold standard. I think Kikkoman was the first to come out with low sodium soy sauce. Um, and that's what we all used. But nowadays, when I taste the Kikkoman low sodium compared to the two products I mentioned to you, the Yamasa and the Kimlan, that Kikkoman tastes like chemicals. And the Yamasa and Kimlan are far superior. And I actually have a bottle of the Kikkoman here, and I'm just going to look. So it's soybean salt, lactic acid, sodium benzoate, and then there's some sort of preservative. And I'm just going to look at my Kimlan here. And it says soybeans, wheat, water, sugar, salt, seasoning agents, licorice extract. So it doesn't have those chemicals. That's why the Kikkoman tastes so bad.
Okay, so I'm going to combine these two questions. Why do you need salt when soy sauce is already salty? And then what's the difference between using low sodium soy sauce plus salt versus soy sauce only?
So soy sauce and salt both have sodium, but soy sauce has what we call umami flavor. And so it adds something different to your recipe. It adds a different layer of flavor. If you are concerned about sodium, you can knock out the salt and just use the soy sauce, or you could use a reduced amount of salt. But they both contain sodium, but it's a different flavor profile, and you can taste it yourself. If you just taste salt and you taste soy sauce, completely different. Both salty, but different levels, different dimensions of flavor. So when you cook, you are adding layers of flavor. And by using these two different sodium products, you enhance the flavor of the dish. But if you have sodium issues, you should reduce the amount of salt you're using or knock it out.
Thank you. And someone has a question regarding induction stoves. When
Yes.
I've tried to use a wok, only the flat bottom heats up and the sides remain cold. Do you have any advice for cooking on an induction stove?
So that's the problem with induction, that you will only get the bottom hot. And when you are cooking with carbon steel or cast iron, only the bottom is going to start to acquire the seasoning and the patina. And that's just the limitation of induction. You can't change that. The sides will never get hot. Whereas with gas, the heat travels up the sides.
Thank you. And Mark's asking, is it KK discount? I know we're going to put together a list of all the products and the resources, but he's just asking, KK discount, is this the place you can also shop at our New York City retail store located at 70 Mulberry Street?
Yes, I believe it's 78 Mulberry. I can't believe I can.
Yes, 78. Yeah.
Yes, it's much preferred if you go to the store, but I know that most of you are in Massachusetts, so I assume that you would be ordering online. And I know I said it earlier, the website is so ugly. Just don't get thrown by it. When you get onto the website, it looks like it's like a child's site. But if you look up 14-inch flat bottom wok, you will go onto that page, and the wok is really reliable. And Mr. and Mrs. Lee take great care in packing up your wok and walking it to the post office or UPS to send it to you. So yeah, they're very, very hardworking, and they've been really struggling.
And speaking of woks, what brand is your wok? Someone said she noticed that it has a long handle instead of two short ones on each side.
Well, as you can see, I have it right here. Yeah, I have the long wooden handle and the short helper handle. There is no brand. As I said in the CBS interview, I have many, many, many woks. A few of them are from KK. A few of them are from the wok shop in San Francisco, which is where I recommend that you buy the flat bottom cast iron wok if you have an induction stove and the carbon steel is not working for you. I have hand hammered woks. I have woks that I bought from all over the world. So but none of them have a brand.
Okay. Any advice on how to keep Chinese rice cakes from sticking to the wok?
Well, I think it's very important to do this trick that I taught you from the very beginning. You have to preheat the wok first. I've seen so many stir fry recipes that say add the oil to the wok and then turn up the heat to high, and that will guarantee that the food will stick. But if you preheat the wok first and then use my water drop test, and the moment the water evaporates within a second, then add your oil, then add your rice cakes. That should work. One trick that I do with rice cakes. So this is my book, Stir Frying to the Sky's Edge. And in every chapter, I give you all the tricks for what you need to be looking after, for vegetables, that you don't want to have wet vegetables, the order that goes into the wok, first the hard vegetables, then to stir fry for like a minute or so, then medium hard, then soft vegetables like leafy vegetables. But for noodles, one thing that's really important is that you let the noodles just spread them out in the wok and let it sear for like 30 seconds to a minute before you start stir frying it, because that allows the noodles to start to, it prevents them from sticking.
I'm going to combine these two. Can you substitute rehydrated Chinese mushrooms instead of fresh shiitake? And can you substitute different rices, especially brown?
Yes, absolutely. I should have said that. Today I used long grain white rice. I like to use different kinds of rice. Sometimes I do brown rice. Sometimes I do basmati. So it's whatever you're in the mood for. So this fried rice recipe is a template. And once you understand the principles, then you can really play with it. And play with the vegetables, as I said. Like today I had the bell pepper and corn and shiitake mushrooms. Just yesterday, I bought some fresh corn. Fresh corn is so good in fried rice. And right now, the season is changing. You're going to see more broccoli. You're going to see more cauliflower, kale in the markets. So add that and change your fried rice according to the seasons. And the reconstituted dried Chinese mushrooms are fabulous.
So I'm going to ask you a question from Lisa because she's been waiting for years to ask you this. When I make your recipes, you often have us put some ginger or garlic on the side of the wok after cooking it briefly. I have an issue with the garlic or ginger overcooking before I get it to the side. And if I don't burn it, when I put it on the side, as you say to do, it seems to continue cooking. What am I doing wrong? Thank you in advance.
I'm sorry about, in the old days, back in the 1950s, every American home had more or less the same residential stove, same power. But nowadays, maybe you have a semi-professional stove with more power. You can have, I have a KitchenAid stove, and one of my burners is more powerful than the other burners. So maybe your burner is a little bit more powerful. If that is the case, then I would add the ginger and garlic a little later in the recipe.
Great, thank you. During the initial cleaning, can you use barkeeper's friend?
I've never I know what barkeeper's friend is, but there's no need to use that. It's just liquid detergent and the stainless steel scrubber is all you need.
Okay. And do you season the Chinese cast iron wok the same as the carbon steel?
Yes. And I just wanted to add one more thing. So I've mentioned the Chinese cast iron, but I just want to make that it's thinner and lightweight, and that if you banged it against the counter, it will shatter. I didn't say anything about American cast iron, and I don't promote American cast iron woks as a good alternative if you're not using carbon steel, because American cast iron is way too heavy. So American cast iron woks are typically made by Loge, and a wok, like my carbon steel wok, weighs about 3 pounds. My Chinese cast iron wok weighs about 3.5 to 4 pounds. Loge could be 9 pounds without food. So the negative aspect of cast iron is it's slower to heat. Carbon steel heats quickly. Cast iron takes a long time. And if it's American cast iron, it's going to take even longer. The positive thing about cast iron is once it heats up, it retains the heat. But if you're a novice at stir frying, then the moment the stir fry is done, if you don't get the food out really quickly, it's going to overcook because that heat is still coming at the stir fry. So with American cast iron, I cannot pick it up with one hand with the food and pour it onto a platter, which I can with carbon steel. So it's going to continue to cook, which is very, very bad. So I'm very anti-American cast iron, not because it's American, but because it's too thick and it's too clumsy to work with.
Thank you. We're just gonna have 2 more questions. Can you recommend a good restaurant in New York City's Chinatown? And because we're in Massachusetts, if you could recommend one from Massachusetts as well, Boston.
Oh my gosh. So in New York City's Chinatown, one of my favorites is Hop Lee. I brought the CBS folks there. I'm very partial to Hop Lee because it is, I think, 50 years old this year. So it's one of the old legacy restaurants, and it reminds me of the kind of restaurants my father used to bring me to back in San Francisco. I also like Hop Key. So there's Hop Lee, Lee, and Hop Key, which is across the street. And there's Wo Hop, which is Chinatown's second oldest restaurant. In Boston's Chinatown, oh my gosh, I am just blanking out right now on the restaurant that I went to this past year. It was just in June. And I'm going to have to tell Helen and email you, but I can't believe I'm sorry, I'm just blanking out.
Okay, we'll send that out.
Okay.
Maybe they're asking what is the meaning of the title?
Oh, stir frying to the sky's edge. So there's an old Chinese saying that walk teams with one walk you can go to the sky's edge, which means that with one walk, wherever you go, you can survive, that you can take care of yourself. That's all that you need. And I just should say that so many people think of the wok as a stir fry pan, but it's so much more. With a wok, you can steam, boil, poach, stir fry, pan fry, deep fat fry, braise, smoke. I use my wok to make popcorn. I use my wok to scramble eggs, pan fry a steak. The uses for a wok are just incredible. So at KK, I can't remember if it's $30 or $35 for the wok and an additional like $10 for the shipping. But it is a very modest amount of money, but it will last more than your lifetime.
Thank you. And so with that, We are going to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Grace, for a wonderful program. You're so amazing, both in the kitchen, out, and so inspiring. I just want to thank you again for sharing all of this with us today.
You're very welcome, and thank everyone for staying here with the class. I'm very grateful to have had such a nice big audience, and grateful for all of you who are going to go out there and support your local Chinatown or your little local Asian market or restaurant.
Great, thank you. And again, we'll send out a recap with a link to the recording, a list of the resources, and I will add in that hashtag. So the next time you go to Chinatown and you have a meal, be sure to tag them on that.
Yeah, hashtag support Chinatowns, plural, because it's more than one Chinatown.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again, Grace. Have a good night.
Thank you.